The desert never truly slept, even at dusk. When the sun bled into the horizon and painted the rocks in fire and shadow, the land watched every step a man took. The lone rancher rode slowly through that silence, his horse favoring one leg, its breath heavy and uneven. He matched the animal's rhythm, hunched forward in the saddle, one hand tight on the reins and the other pressed against his side where the pain lived. The wound had been months old, months since the ambush, since the gunshot that should have ended him, but it still burned like it had happened yesterday. Doctors called it healed. The land knew better. A gust of wind cut across the trail, carrying the scent of dust and sage, and that was when he saw her. She stood near the canyon's edge, motionless, as if she had always been there. Tall, far taller than any woman he had ever known, her silhouette rose against the dying light like a figure carved from stone. Long black hair hung in thick braids down her back, and her presence bent the air around her, heavy and undeniable. Instinct took over. The rancher's hand moved toward his rifle. "Don't!" The word stopped him cold. Her voice was low, calm, and certain, as though she already knew what he would do before he did it. He froze, fingers brushing the worn wood of the gunstock. "It still hurts there," she said, her dark eyes drifting to his side. "You ride like a man pretending he isn't broken." His breath caught. No one had spoken of his wound in weeks. No one could have known how it still woke him at night, how every mile in the saddle felt like punishment. He straightened, forcing his voice steady. "Who are you?" he asked. She stepped forward, and the fading light revealed her fully. She was massive, not in cruelty but in strength, her face young yet ancient, marked by a quiet sadness that felt older than the land itself. The ground seemed smaller beneath her feet. "I am Apache," she said, "and I am what remains when pain refuses to die." The rancher swallowed, his heart hammering. The wind rose, whispering through the canyon walls, carrying stories of blood and memory. He realized then that the ache in his side was more than flesh and bone. It was the land calling him back to something unfinished, and the giant Apache girl stood before him not as a threat, but as a warning he was never meant to ignore. Night settled over the canyon like a heavy blanket, and the fire between them cracked and popped, throwing long shadows against the rocks. The rancher sat stiffly on the ground, his back against the saddle, watching her from across the flames. Up close, she felt even more unreal. She was easily twice his size, her shoulders broad and strong, her posture relaxed yet alert, like a warrior who never truly rested. The firelight danced across her face, revealing scars that looked old enough to belong to another lifetime. He kept his rifle within reach, though some instinct told him it would be useless. "Why didn't you kill me?" he asked at last, breaking the silence. His voice echoed strangely in the open dark. She glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "Because you are already wounded," she said, "and killing a wounded man teaches nothing." He frowned. "You don't know me." A faint smile touched her lips, sad and knowing. "I know pain. That is enough." The wind shifted, carrying the smell of smoke and sage. She lifted her arm and pushed back the sleeve of her buckskin dress, revealing a long, jagged scar running from elbow to shoulder. "This was given to me when I was young," she said. "It healed, but it never left." Her fingers traced the mark slowly. "Your wound is the same. It lives beyond the skin." The rancher felt his jaw tighten. Memories stirred. Gunfire, shouting, the weight of men dying beside him. He had buried them himself, one by one, under a sun that showed no mercy. "I survived," he said quietly. "That should count for something." She shook her head. "Survival is not the same as living." She leaned closer, the heat of the fire suddenly nothing compared to the warmth radiating from her. Before he could pull away, she pressed 2 fingers against his side. Pain exploded through him, sharp and blinding, stealing his breath. He cried out and doubled over, clutching at the dirt. "That place," she whispered, her voice steady despite his agony. "That is where you stopped moving forward. You carry the weight of men who chose their own end, and you punish yourself for it." The pain eased, leaving him gasping. He stared at her, eyes wide, shaken to his core. "How do you know all this?" She rose to her full height, her shadow stretching far beyond the firelight. "Because this land remembers every scream, every drop of blood," she said. And tomorrow you will listen." He looked up at her, fear and something like hope twisting together in his chest. "Tomorrow?" he asked. She turned toward the darkness, her voice drifting back to him like a promise and a threat all at once. "Tomorrow you ride with me, to the place where your pain began, and where it must finally be faced." They rode before the sun rose, when the desert was still blue with shadow and the air cut cold against the skin. The rancher followed her in silence, his horse uneasy, snorting as if it sensed something wrong with the trail. The giant Apache girl moved ahead with calm certainty, guiding them through narrow passes and forgotten paths no map would ever show. With every mile, the ache in his side grew heavier, no longer sharp but deep and pulling, as if the land itself were tugging him forward. When they reached the place, the light had just begun to spill over the hills. The rancher recognized it instantly. Broken wagon wheels lay half-buried in sand, their wood bleached pale by years of sun. Rusted rifle barrels jutted from the earth like dead branches. Bones, human and animal, rested where they had fallen, untouched, unclaimed. His chest tightened, and his legs nearly gave way beneath him. "This is where it happened," he said, his voice barely more than breath. She dismounted and stood still, her eyes moving across the ground with quiet grief. "This is where many things ended," she replied, "and where many others began." He dropped to his knees, the memories crashing into him all at once. The ambush, the screams, the chaos, the moment the bullet tore through his side and sent him into the dust. He had fought, he had bled, and when it was over, he had been the only one left standing. "I didn't save them," he whispered. "I should have done more." She knelt beside him, the earth trembling faintly under her weight. "You were never meant to carry every life on your back," she said. "They made their choices, as all warriors do." She placed her palm against the ground, and the wind rose suddenly, sweeping across the site as if answering her touch. The pain in his side surged once more, then softened, spreading into warmth. "Your wound tied you to this place," she continued. "Not because you failed, but because you remembered." Tears streaked down his dust-caked face, as something inside him finally loosened. He felt the weight he had carried for so long begin to lift, not erased but understood. When he looked up again, she was standing, her form already fading into the morning light. "Will I see you again?" he asked. Her voice came on the wind, gentle and distant. "I am wherever the land speaks." She was gone then, leaving only the quiet desert and hoofprints far larger than any horse could make. The rancher stood slowly, his side no longer aching. The scar remained, but the pain had lost its power. As he rode away, the wind whispered through the canyon, and he knew some wounds never vanish. They simply teach a man how to live with truth. The rancher rode on for days after leaving the canyon, yet the desert felt different now, as if it no longer watched him with quiet judgment. The sun still burned, the night still froze his bones, but the constant pull in his side was gone. In its place was a strange awareness, a feeling that every mile carried meaning. He found himself noticing things he had long ignored, the way the wind bent the grass before a storm, the way vultures circled not with cruelty, but patience. When he reached his ranch, trouble was waiting. 3 riders stood near his corral, their horses restless, rifles slung low but ready. They were men who took what they wanted and left graves behind. The same kind of men who had started the bloodshed months ago. The rancher slowed his horse but did not reach for his gun. For the first time in a long while, fear did not tighten his chest. "You're late," one of them sneered. "We heard you had land worth taking." The rancher dismounted calmly. "You heard wrong." Laughter followed, sharp and careless. One man spat into the dust. "You look like someone who's already been buried once." The wind shifted then, sudden and strong. Dust swirled across the yard, and the horses began to whinny, pulling against their reins. The rancher felt it before he saw it, the same presence, heavy and ancient, pressing against the air. He did not turn around. He didn't need to. A shadow fell across the ground, long and unmistakable. The men froze as the giant Apache girl stepped into view behind him, her height dwarfing horse and rider alike. Her eyes were dark, reflecting the sky, and her expression held no anger, only certainty. One of the men dropped his rifle without realizing it. "This land remembers," she said softly, "and it does not welcome thieves." The riders backed away, panic replacing arrogance. They mounted in a rush, spurring their horses hard. fleeing without a single shot fired. Silence returned, broken only by the wind passing through the fence rails. The rancher turned to her at last. "You came back." She nodded. "You listened." He looked at his hands, steady now, no longer shaking under the weight of old ghosts. "The pain's gone," he said. "No," she corrected gently. "The pain has changed. It will guide you now, not haunt you." As suddenly as she had appeared, she stepped back, her form blending with dust and light, until only the empty yard remained. The rancher stood alone but not abandoned. From that day on, the land no longer felt like a burden. It felt like a promise, one he intended to keep.